Hello guys, just give me a second. Hello guys, so welcome. I think this is our 32 meetup. Wow, time flies like it's already 32. And 2021 also going about to end soon. Um, so I hope you guys like slowly like getting as we recovering from the COVID and everything is opening up. I hope you guys staying pretty healthy and all that. So I just going to give a couple of minutes, like just to, just a pretty intro and what's going on, and then we're going to have after that, we have to go through Buzzcorner, the usual Buzzcorner, for 5 10 minutes, and then we're going to have CK, he's a senior specialist solution architect from Red Hat, uh, and then senior specialist solution architect with Red Hat, and then he's going to talk about using the Debezium for microservice Outbox Pattern. And then if you have any questions or what anything whatsoever, just drop in the comment. I'll just like try to bring it up later, and we can like grill him. Hopefully we'll satisfy it out, based on the questions. So let's see how is that goes. And other than that, nothing much. I guess so. And I would like to tell you guys also, like towards the December, what usually happen is we're gonna take a break December and January. After that, next year, what we are planning or expecting is we're gonna go back to the physical meetups. Hopefully things get better, and if touch wood, nothing happens. Things doesn't get worse. Uh, yeah, so if you haven't vaccinated, please get yourself vaccinated. As usual, fully vaccinated. Don't try to run away from not getting vaccinated and stuff. It's actually very good. It's very helpful for your health and the people around you. So, um, and other than that, just waiting for more people to join as well. So, slowly more people are joining in. So, I'm just gonna carry on for a few 1 minute, and then I'm gonna start. Other than that, what else going on? Yep. So we're gonna change a couple of things, like structure and how we're gonna present, and how we're gonna have speaker and like Q&A, even the platform. So if you guys are on Facebook, probably like try to move and join us on Meetup page, please. So I try to gonna reduce usage using the Facebook moving forward. We're gonna rely entirely on the Meetup page moving forward lah. So we are paying for Meetup page anyway, so might as well you guys join in, get the notification, any newsletter. Sometimes sponsors will give free stuff as well. And then we just like pass it out to you guys, like give it to you, and then you can use it as well, right? So it's like quite useful to get interaction with you guys lah. We don't share any data of you, we guys with anyone actually. So if they wanna, usually what we tell them is if they wanted your data, we ask them to gather to ask it for your site itself, like for the user itself. Uh, that's usually what happens lah. All right, and I think now we can start a bit. So let me go back to the screen, and I think talking about general stuff. So again, guys, welcome to our 32 meetup of since the beginning, right? So and today for tonight we're gonna have CK from Senior Specialist Solution Architect from Red Hat. He's gonna talk about using Debezium for microservices Outbox Pattern. So he gonna talk about that later on after my boss corner. So it's just like if you have any questions, what's Debezium, how does it even work, why we are talking about Debezium, what tonight and stuff like that, right? Just feel free to drop your questions in the comment lah. So we can bring it up later. And are there any other question you have for me as well? You feel free. And then other than that, we are also always looking for sponsors and speakers. Uh, and if you have any idea, any collaboration or what, right? Feel free to reach out me. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn, or also via the Meetup page itself. You can message me on the Meetup page itself. I will always respond lah. Or yeah, generally that's how it works lah. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, just search for my name lah, TEVANRAJ. So just find it there, and then you find me lah. And having talking about that, let's talk about community as well. Like we are having out a lot on engineers and why. Yes, we talk about, let's say any issues, whatever stuff we talk about Buzzcorner. That's why we actually discuss it. We have like what's your opinion on their opinion, stuff that doesn't get filtered. So this is a filtered version, that's a non-filtered version. So feel free. If you want to look out the channel, just search for meetups. Buzzcorner, etc. So there's a lot of channels that feel free to join anyone. You can also join the support channel if you have any need help with your work question. I mean any question or what we are happy to help you out. There's a lot of very experienced guys there, right? So with a very experienced guys there working, and if you have a job posting as well, you can post it there lah. So yep, that's mainly about. Or you want to volunteer to speak or what, you can just feel free to reach out to us. We are there as well. And we also have like multiple other meetups that we also usually share on the devkami.com/meetups. So that usually we share the meetups over there. And what we usually have a KLJS, Junior Dev, Python, data science as well. That if you want to check it out, you probably like if you're interested in data lah, you can check that out. So Afis is leading that one, so I believe that. So feel free and join anything that that interests you guys lah. But usually towards the end of the year, December, November, we just slow down. We just take a break lah. And other than that, household minimum bike shading. We are the comments. So and also please respect opinions. Agree to disagree. Although you feel like probably the guy is wrong or this guy is right. Although you have a better opinion on what. I think keep it the conversation civil. Don't and agree to disagree. We can actually, if it's a very good conversation or conversation, we can actually bring it up as a topic itself. We can actually maybe we do a forum or something, right, for further on that part as well, and be participative. And of course, thanks to the sponsors and volunteers. Like for today, thanks to Redhat and CK to actually for being the speaker tonight as well. So hopefully we can get a lot of info from him. And since this is an online education edition, so we still have the Buzzcorner Q&A as well. No need to mute yourself because we use it StreamYard, so automatically we already mute you. And give us feedback. So I actually very appreciative of feedback. You can send us the feedback via the meetup or personally to me or any way you can find to tell us the feedback. Feel free. And we very happy to learn from you guys, like actually what you guys are looking forward and any topics that interest you guys, or it probably doesn't like this format or it doesn't like me or whatever, right? That you feel like just feel free to give a feedback so we can improve. And because this is about community and tech community manager, so it's like giving back to you guys. So you guys need to tell us what you guys want so we can give more of that back to you guys. If any questions, as usual, drop in the comments. And now we back to the Buzzcorner. So for Buzzcorner, we're gonna have, I think we don't have much actually. I think but there's a couple of issues happening in October, so we will discuss that as well. But we don't have much. But like previous month, I think we had a lot of like data leader stuff lah. So let's start with the first one. First one is from Microsoft as well. So basically, for GitLab, there's a targeted Debezium malware, which is always have a backdoor lah. So Microsoft actually wrote about this on their security blog. So you probably want to go and check it out on this part. I don't know why, but lately there's a lot of like security issues on the Microsoft side. So yeah, just beware and get yourself updated and update your system always lah. Especially on the cloud and Azure side as well. And based on what the new latest update and everything. And moving next one is a Cloudflare. So Cloudflare is announcing the new R2 storage, which is like another object storage, but they're claiming that this one doesn't have the egress fees. So if you're interested, you can go and check it out as well for this one. And next will be from AWS side. So AWS now we have a managed service for Prometheus, and they're also including alert manager and ruler with that. So I think this is quite helpful, like for a lot of you guys, like actually from the data side or from the visualization, all that, right? And probably want to select based on the visualization, alert, and stacking, like observability or for observability or stuff like that. So yeah, feel free to check that out as well. So. And other than that, we have okay, this is an interesting one, which is NMS announced a data leak for a web hosting company called Epic. So basically, they literally like expose like 59 API keys for Twitter, Coinbase, Paypal, and everything. So you can go read up more on the links of on the daily dot. So how they did it and what are the data they are leaked and all that. Or you can just go to the Twitter this guy and look for him. It's actually I think it's one of the security guy, well-known security guy, so you can check it out. And next, what we had is in the beginning of the month itself, where Bank Negara temporarily suspends credit report access to the from the secret services. So CITOS is a third party other than the bank negara secrets. So they have a linkage to secret service, but suddenly they said told CITOS that they asked to suspend it for a while. So that was, I think it was like for a day or something, if not mistaken, just to as a precautionary steps. So after you guys, all right, how you guys want to keep that? Hopefully nothing happened. We didn't hear any bad news from falling off on that. So I guess everything went well after that. As a precautionary measure, I believe. So yeah. And moving forward, there's a Slack outage as usual. And this is like just the best way of like, especially now everyone's working remote, right? And most of the remote workers actually rely on Slack a lot. So probably this disrupt a lot of you guys like and try to get your work done and everything lah. So it's just, and RCA is out as well. So you probably want to read that out, like what's caused the outage and everything. So it's a quite interesting one. So probably want to read that. And other than that, the new next one is the huge one, which literally caused like every every news channel was like talking about this. And following that, the news of Facebook still continues until today for various issues, right? So basically, what happened here is the Facebook outage, which caused across. It's quite unique. Because he brought together Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook. All three together was down, literally disappeared overnight from the internet itself. And you can read this on Cloudflare as well. Like Cloudflare actually wrote a very interesting one. Basically, literally, they thought like something wrong with the Cloudflare itself. So I mean, their services when things went down, but then realized that something went after a while. They realized that it's further. I mean, up. After checking further on it, they realized that Facebook DNS is like doesn't work. It's like returning serve fail. So it's actually coming from Facebook side. So Facebook also released the RCA on this, but I don't think there's much detail on that lah. So but you can read a lot of stuff on this, but I find it the Cloudflare one is the most interesting one, which is related to this issue. But it's quite interesting, so actually what actually went wrong there and everything. And next one is the AWS, which where they announces a cloud control API, which access to AWS and third-party services lah. So I think if you guys probably want to check that out, if you're relying on a lot of APIs and like how to use this and stuff like that, and design it for your developers to use lah. And yep, I don't know whether it's good or bad news, but we have another CSP for the kind of Malaysia. Which is Alibaba. So Alibaba is another additional on top of AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. So we have now Alibaba Cloud as well. And next one is from TM, where they announced that they're gonna stop offering public IP for customers with 100 MBs and below. Some people probably like this is if you sometimes people rely on public IP a lot. So if you want to check that this out, whether you can like see whether how you can mitigate the issues if you're relying on the public IP. But most of the time people actually goes for the private IP. So I think won't affect a lot of users, but you might want to check it out lah. And it's actually a good news as well because they're only limiting to CCTV, server hosting, file sharing, and gaming, which is like this. Like for example, CCTV is like very important, right? You don't want to use public IP for that. Yeah. And moving on, just a consolidation of like cloud network and cloud as like I believe is going on in the market, in the local market itself. So Microservices is selling sold their managed network services to Maxis. So this is like something new for us. So if you're relying on Microservices so soon it's going to be under Maxis. So check. So hopefully doesn't impact you guys much if you guys relying on that. And moving forward, next one is the Ageless Db. So this is a Microsoft tech committee.microsoft.com released on blog on this. Basically they're introducing a Ageless Db. So basically apparently this is a DB is encrypted on this itself, very secure and extra lah. But how secure it is obviously like there's always a way to get around it of it for malware or any issues, right? So probably you guys want to test it out. So and let's see how secure it is for you guys. And if this is I think this is probably a bad news as well. Like we do this what going to happen, what this mean is basically SKM or MCMC is going to regulate the cloud providers starting for next year. So I think this is like over regulated, so probably it's a bad thing as well, like as we move forward with the cloud and the tech side. So we don't want to over regulate this part and everything. It is really relies, I mean it's actually adds a lot of like layers and stuff, but For now, just let's wait and see. Hopefully, it won't be issues, cause any issues down the road. But yeah. And next one is the Cockroach DB. So basically, they launched a serverless, and now they're focusing on more on the developers. So developers who are fan of like Cockroach DB and you were looking forward for serverless for quite some time. Now you see your chance, so you can look forward for that. And this will be the last slide for Buzzcorner. So basically, what this is announcement from Google Soft. So they're announcing a Pusha, which is an open source operating system. So which is and they make sure is they state there that's not based on Linux. So and it's basically it's a good I think this is targeted for the Flutter developers but something is still new and as usual with Google is like they know something down the road suddenly they kill the thing and everyone stuck. So or I mean, that's usually what happens with Google, right? So be cautious as usual. You can check it out if you're interested in, and see how this is useful for you guys or not, lah, especially for the Flutter developers. So check it out, lah, and and let us know as well if you got any feedback on that. So I think this is something new from Google. So oh, yeah. So I think we have one more slide, I guess, one or two. So I think okay, this is an issue happening and got viral on the Twitter and everything. Because what happening was that some of the MySejahtera users getting a like a prank email from MySejahtera itself. So basically, apparently, this is an API misuse. Or most likely be a public exposed. I mean, some of the API was exposed to the public, and someone take a leverage of the exposed API and try to like send the unsolicited OTP and everything lah. Hopefully the OTP didn't cost a lot for them and spam and create. I mean, and they were causing a lot of spam emails lah. I mean, for personally me, I wasn't affected, so they claiming there's no data leakage and everything. So hopefully the data is secure and everything lah. But as you know from like previous Buzzcorner and everything, like I guess most of the Malaysian data is already leaked and available out there anyway. So it doesn't cost much. I mean, hopefully it doesn't cost much to sure. Okay, and then the next one, okay, this is I'm sure this is the last slide. Okay, then we can have CK. Wow. So Facebook papers is so the issue of Facebook is ongoing. So we're starting from whistleblower and then the went downtime and then after that it's a whistleblower issues and then now it's the Facebook papers. So probably you guys want to check it out, like what's going on with Facebook, how Facebook is manipulating stuff. You can go check it out. Washington Post write up and CNN as well. This is linked as well. Where they talk about like how they control the news and how they control the issues happening, how they control Facebook in different countries variously to their advantage and what they claim and stuff like that lah. So yeah, so this probably if you're not a fan of Facebook, yeah, so this you probably like shocked, or if you're not, I mean, if you're not aware of it, it's a good read for you guys, like how social media are being used and manipulated, etc. lah. So yeah, and with that, I'm happy to take any questions. You can drop in the comments as usual, and we're gonna have CK. So CK guy is a senior specialist solution architect with Redhat. So he's gonna talk about using Debezium for microservices, Outbox Pattern. So while he's talking, you can drop any question in the comment, and we'll bring it out later to answer any of your questions lah. Right. So let me gonna stop share and bring him. Okay. All right. Okay, CK, you're live now. So how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Yeah.
Good evening to
Good.
everyone. And good
Yep.
evening to you.
Thank you. So do you have any slides and so we can share and then you can get started?
Yep, I'm going to share my screen.
Yep, sure. Let me bring it up. Are you back to the office now?
And no, we still work from home. Yeah,
Still working
hopefully
home. Yep.
soon.
Yep.
Yep.
I think most of the companies are moving back to the office slowly. All right. So I'm gonna leave it to you on the floor, and I'll watch out the comment section for you, and I will join you later on during the Q&A after you end. If anything, all right, guys, to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. Yeah, so I'm CK, or you can just call me Gan. Yeah, so nice to have you all tonight with me. So I'm going to cover what is Debezium, right? So and then I'll talk about what is Debezium Outbox pattern, right? if you are in the developer background or in the developers so-called domain, I probably, if you are doing microservices, you heard about the Outbox pattern. So I'm going to talk about what is the difference if we're using Debezium for the Outbox pattern. And then later on, I'll go through a demo, right, to showcase how this works in using Debezium, okay? So let's go a very quick one. I know today we probably have less than an hour for this whole session. So I'm trying to keep as simple but as fruitful as well. So what is Debezium, right? A very simple question asked, right? So basically Debezium is actually built on top of Kafka Connect framework. So if you know about Apache Kafka, there's a Connect framework available. So Debezium actually based on the Kafka Connect and built on top of it. So what we do with the Debezium is that basically we will use Debezium for change data captures. So if you look at the diagram here, right, a very quick and simple one. So you can see that actually there is an Apache Kafka here, and then there is a Kafka Connect here. So you will see a logo of a Debezium here, right? So this is where the Debezium will come into play, right? It has this built-in connector for different type of databases, so that you can capture the changes from the database, right? So the changes that you can capture is like insert, delete, updates. Basically, it's based on the transaction logs. So it's really non-intrusive kind of data captures. And basically, if you know, I think if you notice that whatever we captures from the source databases, it will always go into Apache Kafka, right? So this is how it works. Then later on, if any application or system that is interest on this data in the Apache Kafka, then they can actually subscribe and consume the messages from the Apache Kafka, right? So the latest version today is 1.5. So basically, that is a very quick one about what is Debezium. Okay. So the next one, I think you might be asking, what is the database that we support today, right? So this is a list of database that we support today. I think it covered quite well-known database in the market today. So and if you see that Oracle it actually is a developer preview today, so but it's going to move to GA soon. So these are lists of database that we can capture as a source of database. Okay. So what is the advantages of log-based kind of change CDC, right? So the thing is that all data changes can be captured. Like I mentioned earlier, if you have insert, deletes, updates in the database, all these will be actually captured into the by the Debezium into the Apache Kafka. So there is no delay and there is no overhead like I mentioned earlier, because it's actually using the database transaction log to capture all these changes, committed changes from the database side. So whatever that is the connector that is actually performs or running or doing a reading from the transaction log, it doesn't introduce any overhead or what we call non-intrusive kind of operation. So whatever you actually so-called doing at the back end by the Debezium, right? It doesn't actually really touching your database. It will not affecting your application or your database itself, right? So that is what we want, right? So if we are developer or we are application team, when we are doing our application development, we we need to focus fully on the application logic implementation instead of like worrying how should we do the data changes or the data capturings to the other third party and so on, right? So this is something that really hands off the developer from really worry about how this should be implemented. So you can capture the deletes. There is also if you are first time using this Debezium, right? So there is a configuration allows you to configure to say to captures um, all the old data or the old record state from your existing database. That means you can do a snapshot before you really have the Debezium to capture all the real-time insert or delete of data that is coming in after the Debezium is running, right? So this is one good features where if you are first time using the Debezium, you can do a snapshot of your existing record state and all the metadata that is required. Okay. So if we compare between the log and query-based kind of a CDC, obviously there's a lot of advantages. I think this table summarized well. So if you look at here, all data can be captured by log-based. Instead of like doing query-based, or if you do a so-called stock procedure in the database level, that is not necessarily a very good idea to do it, because you also introduce overhead into the database. But by using a load-based kind of capturing, this will not happen. So I actually this is just put up tables here, right, for you to have a quick view of what is the differences and advantages of query-based versus the log-based, right? So if you look at the change event structure that we capture, if you look at the so-called this right-hand side, so these are the raw format in JSON format that actually captures by the Debezium. So if you look at here, obviously I will have something like before. If before is now, that means this is an insert operation of the database, right? So this is after insert, I will have a record with ID equal to 104, first name, last name, and email, right? And then I will have metadata such as like what is the source of this server and database and so on, right? So this is the structure of how it will be captured by the Debezium. Okay. So you also have a choice to actually say, I don't want JSON format. I want other kind of more so-called schema, like I can do validation and so on, such as like Afro, right? So you can also use Afro. And today also Debezium actually support cloud event data format as well. So this cloud event data format has become very popular and become, I think, cloud event format has starting to become a de facto format for all these messaging in the so-called messaging event-driven kind of architecture, right? So the Debezium support this as well off the box, right? So basically, how if you want to choose to say I want to use JSON or Afro or cloud events, basically just a configuration, right? So you do not need to actually do anything or any changes on the so-called coding or whatever. So there is another concept in Debezium, what we call single message transformation. So what we have in the Debezium actually is that you can actually through a configuration so-called approach. I will show later in the demo, right? You can actually do a certain level of simple message transformation, such as, for example, I want to do a format conversion between time and date. I want to have extract a new row state coming out. I want to combine two so-called source of stream of data from two database into one stream, right? You can do that using the so-called Debezium SMT or single message transformation. So in fact, this is SMT actually is a features of Kafka, right? We just the Debezium actually just right on top of this feature and built in the capability allow you to do this kind of transformation using configuration approach. So out of the box in Debezium, if let's say we go back to the earlier slide in here, so if you look at Kafka Connect or Debezium, that is when it captures the data, right? So this is the format that will actually, as a raw, will be output into the Kafka if you do not do any SMT, right? So this is a raw format. And when this raw format go into the Apache Kafka topic, you need to do certain processing, right? In certain cases, you probably need to know what is the source of database, what is the before, so-called the data before and after, right? But for a case like example in the Outbox pattern implementation that I'm going to cover later, right? So we are not interested in all this information. So out of the box in the Debezium for the Outbox pattern, there is already a SMT built-in implemented where it only extract this payload information and send it to the Kafka topic. So this will make the life of developer and whatever system that need to consume these messages become much more easier, right? So that is the use of SMT. And yeah, so I'm going to cover about the Outbox pattern, a quick one. So I'm not sure whether you know about microservices pattern. So I just put it up here as a quick so-called recap. So if you look at here, there are many. Oh, I cannot enlarge it, sorry. So it's quite small, but you can go to this URL and look at the images or this diagram. So basically in microservices pattern, right, talking about quite a number of different microservices pattern for infra, for platform, and so on, right? But at the application layer, we have things such as like Saga pattern and Outbox pattern. So why do we have this kind of pattern, right? The idea of having this pattern for microservices is that when we want to implement a microservices with so-called atomic in an atomic format. What we mean by atomic format is that um, my microservices can run by its own, it can scale by its own, it do not need to depend on other system, and it actually decouple from other system. So if there is a system that failed, or other microservices that failed, the existing microservices will still run and continue to run without any problem. So that is why we look at the Saga pattern. And if you look at Saga pattern, right, it's talking about if I have two services that is running, and if I receive an order here, I need to tell the customer service that, oh, there's an order coming in, you need to reserve the credit and so on. So how does these two services talk to each other? It's using a Saga pattern where this order service need to send a message to tell the customer service to do that. But there is a so-called catch in here, is that you need each of these service need to have a mechanism to be able to handle situation where you have a failed transaction, right? For example, if let's say a customer service failed to reserve the credit, yes, to send back a message to the order service to say, hey, I'm not able to reserve the credit. Can you so-called roll back the order so that the customer know about it, right? So these all have to be handled by the individual services itself. So I'm not discounting or saying that Saga pattern is not good, but you will need to aware of these kind of challenges or things that you need to think about before you go and choose Saga pattern for your microservices implementation, right? So obviously these patterns will maybe suitable for certain situation, but I don't like it personally. I really don't like this kind of patterns where I need to do a lot of implementation, right? So the second one is the Outbox pattern, which is much more better. If you look at here, Outbox pattern actually talking about if let's say I'm order service, I have my own order table. So if you notice, this is one order service or one microservice and one DB, right? So it's truly a atomic and microservices approach, a kind of implementation of patterns, where we're talking about single microservices and single DB service, right? And in this case, when we refer to outbox pattern, is talking about using additional and outbox table. So let's say we insert an order into order table, and at the same time, this order service need to insert event messages into the outbox table so that it can be sent to a messaging platform so that it can be consumed by the third-party system, right? So in this case, why we choose this is that if you look at here, all these tables are in one single database, and it's quite easy for this order service or this application to maintain the so-called transaction management or to handle the transaction management, right? So it doesn't need to actually care or insert or updates a database or tables from other DB service, right? So there's no cross domain or cross system or cross platform kind of transaction that you need to handle. Basically, there's no SA transaction that you need to handle. So this is very neat and pretty, right? So whatever failed, right? So if let's say you do an insert, update, or delete failed at the order table, obviously your application will not do an insert, update, delete into the outbox table, right? So if your success committed here, this will be committed as well, right? So we can, in this kind of patterns, right, we first thing, right, is that it's quite clean. You don't need to do a lot of code, so-called this kind of message exchange to handle the rollback. Second is that um, you can make sure that the data integrity can be maintained quite easy using this kind of pattern, right? So what can Debezium Outbox pattern do better, right? So the next question is, if you look at here, right? So this is a Debezium Outbox pattern. Similar things, similar concept will not run away from the Outbox pattern. But the difference is that using Debezium, right? So the first thing is that you use a declarative approach to define the tables, right? So you don't need to hand create your tables here. When you declare in your application, this table will automatically create it for you. That's the first thing. The second thing is that, yeah, so I mentioned about it. So the second thing is that Debezium immediately will be able to capture the changes from your event tables and then send it to the Apache Kafka and then consumed by any third-party system. So in this case, as a developer or application team, I just fully focus on implementing my order service. I do not need to worry about how I should handle sending this or sharing these messages or data with the third party. Okay, so I hope now you can see that why the Debezium Outbox pattern is much more better in terms of like for the developer application team when they implement the microservices, right? Okay. So I know that is the chat box there. Or if you have any question, you have anything want to ask, you can just so-called post it question there, right? So we can actually, I can actually stop and answer you. If no, then I will continue to proceed to my demo. Okay. So bear with me. My demo actually is running in my own laptop, right? So let me initiate some of these configuration first. I'll go into the detail about explaining this later. I only do it now is that because I don't want my laptop to overkill by all the messages and all the processing that is happening, right? So if you look at here, right, let me go back to my slide again. So you look at my demo, right? So I will have two services here, right? For this demo, actually, I try to mimic a Casa account transaction. Obviously, this is overly simple. If you look at here, there is a Casa service here, right? Which you call the Casa service to do account transfer, balance kind of things. And then it has this respective Casa PostgreSQL. In here, there's a two table here. One is Casa, one is the Outbox event tables. Same for call services. So when the Casa service actually receive a request and send it to the table, right? So the Debasim will capture this and put into the Apache Kafka. And then the call service actually will listen to this one of these topic and then pick up the new request or transaction, do a necessary account debit and credit, and then whatever success or failed of the transaction, it will actually put into the response event tables. So the Debasim will capture this and then put into the Apache Kafka again. So and the Casa service always listen to the response events. So in this case, if you look at this architecture, right, it's quite agile and scalable because of these two services actually do not depend on each other. The first thing, right? Everything is depends on the Apache Kafka, and we know Apache Kafka can perform very well in terms of scalability and the high performance of messaging processing, right? So in this case, if we do it right, done it right, we can actually experience a very fast so-called transaction that is happening at these two services. And with the same patterns that I have, right, I also use it to actually send out so-called auditing information, right, that can be captured and put into a central database, such as like audit payment database in the MongoDB, right? So this is the whole demo of how it looks like. Okay, so I will just do I'll do a first for the first demo. I'll do a very quick one to take a look, right, how these things works from the front end perspective or from the user perspective, right? So obviously I don't have any so-called UI, but what I use is using the Postman. So there's a pre-created two account here. One is the recipient, one is the source. So when I want to do a transaction, I call the Casa service here, right? Obviously, it's my local. So I will send, right? So this is the first time running, it will take some time. Okay, so you can see that the response come back say that it has been submitted, but the processing is happening at the back end. So when we go to request the result, they say the processing has been completed by the call at this time frame. Okay, so from the front end, it's very simple, right? Everything is just send and receive, and that's all, right? But if you look at back end, there is quite a lot of things that is happening here. Obviously, if you look at here, there's quite a number of topics in here in the Apache Kafka. So you'll see that like Casa audit event and things like that. So if you take a look at here, right? So this is, let's say, so let's take a look at what is behind in the, what is the data that should be sent to the Kafka itself. Okay. So, and it has, I need to do from the beginning. So this is a topic, this is the topic where we send the new Casa transaction going in, right? So you can see this is the data actually captures by the Debezium and then sent into this topic itself, okay? And same with the others, right? So, so if you look at here, there's quite a number of services that is running in here. One of the thing I want to show you is that using the same kind of approach, right? So using the Debezium so-called pattern, I can actually so-called captures the audit information without any coding, right? I'll show you the coding later, but I just want to show you the data, right? So how I captures the audit information for the transaction. So let's do a DB is audit. Oops. Okay, sorry, I haven't logged in. You can see that this is the audit information that is captured from the transaction itself, right? So obviously this, if you look at here, they have two actually audit information. One is the payment audit, one is the Casa audit event. The other one is the core audit event. So this audit event is actually produced by the Casa services. This audit event is actually produced by the core services, right? In this case, they actually send two different auditing information, and what we do is just consolidate all this information into one so-called topic, so that we can try to have a centralized auditing information. So this is how it works from the front end itself. Right? Obviously, if you look at here, right, what is the benefit that we have is that we can enforce one database per microservices. We can have a a totally decoupled microservices using the event-driven architecture in here, what you see, right? And the container itself, like the Casa service and the core service, can be scaled very easily and very so-called across different platforms, because everything is rely on the Apache Kafka to provide the messaging event changes, and also the Debezium itself. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to show you is the detail at the back, right? So what we need to do, right, as a developer, what you see here is, yeah, I'm talking about simple, right? How simple is this, right? So let's look at things such as the code itself. All right. On my system becoming slow now because of all the services that is running behind. So the first thing as a developer, right? Obviously, if I'm doing my, let's say my Casa service, for example, right? The one thing I need to do is just to say, I want to use the Debezium Outbox pattern of the router, right? So if you look at here, this is a sample project of Quarkus. If you do not know about Quarkus, if you know about Java, Quarkus is very similar. It's using Java, but Quarkus is much more better in terms of memory usage, the startup, the performance itself, right? So now a lot of people are using Quarkus for container or microservices implementation, cloud native implementation. So in this case, the very first thing I need to do is just to in so-called insert the Debezium Quarkus so-called outbox router plugin here, right? That's all. And then second thing is that what I need to do is just to say, if I want to capture my Casa event, I just need to extend the exported event from the Outbox router itself, and then do a necessary of conversion of the date of the POJO data that I have into a JSON, right? So these are quite standard. When I do this one time, I can totally replicate the same thing for the audit for the core so-called event as well. Nothing much that you need to change here, right? So you just basically you create one time, you can reuse multiple times, right? And then the next thing is that when I want to do the send the messages to the so-called uh, the event itself, right? What I need to do is that as a developer, I concentrate on creating my Casa so-called logic here. So you can see here, the Casa logic here is basically create a Casa transaction. And these are all the standard way of one developer will do, right? I will just do my database, my POJO data creation, and then persist my data, right? So these are standard things that I will do for if I need to insert to my Casa table, right, or database. The next thing I need to do is that I actually create a new Casa event that I mentioned just now here, and using the same data that I have, and then just do a event fire, right? So the event itself here is just a standard exported event, which if you have done so-called some of these so-called persistency or event messaging, right? So this is quite a standard event. So you just do a fire here, right? And the outbox, the Debezium outbox router will take care everything for you. When you do this fire event here or the method here, the Debezium outbox router will go and insert this data into the outbox event table, and then the Debezium will capture this insert event and then stream it to the Kafka, right? So in here, you can see that it's very simple. So if let's say I have a situation that I have problem, the persistency, the saving to database fail and so on, I want to capture this fail event. How? Very simple, right? I just have another Casa audit event, use the same thing, event.fire, right? So I can actually fire a audit event and a Casa fail transaction event to the Apache Kafka as well, right? No other coding that you need to do, right? So the most thing that you need to do is in your application properties, right? You can specify such as like, what is the name of your outbox table that you want to use? In this case, I name it as Casa outbox event, right? So it's very configurable. This is where I say it's very configurable and integrative. You can decide what your table and so on that you want to call it, and the Debezium plugin will actually help you to handle all this thing. Okay, so that is how you need to do in the backend. Obviously, if you look at the Debezium itself, right? If you're familiar with Apache Connector or Apache Connect framework, so this is one of the Apache Connect framework, a standard one that where I use a MongoDB sync to capture the event from the so-called Apache Kafka and then send it to the audit table that I show you just now. All right, this is quite standard. And I say that also Debezium actually based on the Apache Connect framework as well. So basically, you use the same way to configure the Debezium connector, right? In this case, we use a different connector class, obviously. Then we specify our database host name, what is our port, what is our user and password, what is our DB name, and so on. And this is where the magic is coming up, right? So this is where the magic is, the transforms. This is the SMG transformation that we mentioned earlier in the slide. So in here, we specify our transforms. The SMT we want to use is the Outbox. All right. It's actually provided by this so-called Debezium so-called connector plugin. And then in the Outbox for this, we want to do what, right? We want to say for the topic that we send to the targets at the Apache, we want to replace the topic name, right? So in this case, if you notice in here, right? So in my Apache so Casa event, I have aggregate type, and I take the type of the transaction itself. So these are basically configurable, right? You can set this through the environmental variable as well. I did not do it here, right? So it's just a demo, right? So in this case, my aggregate type is Casa. So when I come back to here, right, what happened is that it will replace the topic with the route by value, the value that I have, which is the Casa, and then with a prefix name dot event. So when you go just now, when you see the Kafka topic that I show you, essentially there's a Kafka dot events, right? So this is how you can actually manipulate, all right, what is the topics, what is the name of topics I want to create. And then you can also say, I want to have the timestamp capture from where, right? I can have the timestamp capture from the field I have here, or you probably have other field that probably not this timestamp, but probably other timestamp that you capture from other system. You can actually basically do it by just configuration, right? As long as the data is available. And then for the event ID, I want to use the aggregate ID. So if you look at all this information, it will appear as a header, a metadata header in the Apache Kafka topic. So at the consumer side, when I consume the messages, right, if I want to know what is the event ID, I can actually extract it out from the Apache topic headers. Okay, and additional things like such as I think I want to put in like event type, right? So if you look at here, I have information such as like event type here, which is the payment, right? So all these things are actually configurable, right? So whatever I've shown you here is just a tidbit of uh, whatever available configuration. If you go to the Debasim website, which are provided in the end of the slide, you can have a list of tables, right? All the configuration that you can do, right? In order to help you to customize the behavior of your outbox pattern. Okay, yeah. So with this kind of way of implementation for a developer, right? So I believe I'm not sure whether you agree. If I look at it, it's really a simple implementation to me, right? So I just fully focus on the coding. The rest is I just do configuration for whatever event tables I want to create. And by the way, the demo is just one event tables. But in many real life use cases, you probably have multiple event tables for a different type of consumer that you want to send to, right? Each event table probably have different set of data. So you can do that. You can have multiple event tables in a single implementation as well, just by configuration, right? So you can, obviously it's a non-intrusive kind of change data captures. Declarative transformation with SMT, those I show you just now, like the config file and the application properties, right? All are so-called the declarative or configuration based. The only thing you need to do is the event tables. Oh, no, sorry, the event object, the Casa event object, right? For example, in this case, this is the only thing that you need to do. But this thing, when I've done the first time, I can actually always replicate, always repeat it in other events as well, right? It's not very tough. And it's Quarkus ready. Today, yeah, I think you catch it right. So today, the Outbox, Debezium Outbox pattern or the router itself, the plugin itself, is only available in Quarkus, right? So yeah, no choice. But today, if you have not really tried out Quarkus, I urge you and encourage you go and try out Quarkus. Is if you have done Spring Boot or you've done Java, this is something that is very easy to pick up, but at the same time, it has been simplified the development and implementation so much that a lot of plugin is available, right? I can basically come out many services in just one day by using Quarkus, right? Um, so so that's why we say if you go to Quarkus website, you will see that there's a words called super atomic performance, right? Yeah, so actually Quarkus now, if you look at the statistic that we have tested and the community have tested, right? So the startup time for the Quarkus and so on is actually multiple times faster than Spring Boot, right? And the amount of memory and CPU that need to be used by Quarkus is actually much lesser than the Spring Boot itself, right? So that's why people are using Quarkus for container and cloud native implementation today, especially cloud native. For cloud native, you need to be able to start up your service very fast when there's a load coming in. When there's no load, the cloud native services will actually shut down, right? When there's a load coming in, you need to be able to start very fast. This is where Quarkus come to play, right? Um, I think the very good or the ultimate reason of why using this is that as a developer, you can today fully focus on your business logic implementation instead of doing all this kind of saga pattern or outbox pattern by hand, right? Okay. So this is the end of my presentation. Obviously, if you are interested to know more about the Debezium event router, you can go to this link. There's also an article written by one of our head of developer for the Debezium project, right? Actually, he written one so-called article about reliable microservices data exchange with Outbox pattern. In this article, he actually talking about uh, a manual way of how you can actually implement the Outbox pattern using Debezium, right? But later on, this framework has become a plugin that is available in the Debezium itself, where you can just use it without the manual approach. Okay. Yeah. So I personally, I also, if you're interested in my demo and my these sample codes that I have in here, right? Basically, I actually use a Docker Compose to run it. You can go to my GitHub and download and try it out. And actually, I also written an article on this, which is I call it a true atomic microservices with Debezium to ensure data integrity. This is a post that I have posted quite some time ago, talking about this demo itself and the backend, how all this thing is being implemented. It's a step-by-step so-called instruction. And also I have actually recorded a more details kind of demo, right? Explaining everything, right? If you see today, I cut short the demo and the explanation, right? Um, but if you go to the this article, I have a link to the YouTube where it actually I will guide you through, right? Very detailed. I'll show you everything about the topics, about the tables, everything, right? It's a 1 hour plus kind of YouTube, right? So you can go there and check it out, and let me know if you have anything or any feedback on it. Yeah. So thank you, right? So I want to leave more space for Q&A if there's any.
Yep. So we have one question. I think it's a very good presentation actually. Like I think not many people are actually aware of like Debezium and how it is full and everything. So it's like it's really a good presentation lah for I think. So we have a couple of questions. Like even myself I have a few questions. So but I'm gonna bring the comment first, and then I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions later. So the first question is for Michael. So he's asking is DB logical replication too low level? Because of the topic you have to reinterpret the data coupling of domain knowledge unless it is only crude. Any comments from you?
Is DB logical replication too low level? The consumer of the topic have to reinterpret. So is this asking question from the DB perspective or the Bayesian perspective? I'm not too sure.
I think this is from a DB perspective. I think if you're not sure, it's fine. So I think we
Yeah,
can
I
move on.
think this is more the DB side, right? So if we
Yeah,
look at DB side, I mean, obviously there are quite a lot of different way of implementing this kind of DB replication, right?
yeah,
So I'm not sure one answer can actually answer all the different kind of situation. Yeah, but basically, if you want to say that, I mean, obviously, if you want to do a DB level kind of replication, then I think you need to, first thing is, I think if you compare, if you want to really compare with Debezium, right? The thing is that when we look at the traditional DB replication, it's still very traditional and very so-called centralized. And the performance wise, obviously, it cannot be compete with the so-called Debezium or the event-based kind of architecture. Actually, we have one customer which is, I mean, there's many customers. One I remember is a trucking company in the Europe. They actually using quite a number of database for their so-called data warehouse and data crunching. And this data warehouse and the AI and the data farming actually they provide for the salespeople to actually query for the customer information. By one time has become too slow, right? So what happened is that they starting to look for solution like the event based, and they saw when you encounter the Debezium, and actually help them to cut short after they implement the Debezium. I mean, it's not an easy journey, but after using the Debezium, actually help them to be able to to really cut short the so-called time frame to be able to provide the real-time data for the sales representative to answer to customer, right? So they actually need to always in real time captures where is the location of the truck, and to be able to answer their question to the customer, where is the truck is, where is the container is, right? So this is very critical, and they be able to do it using that Debezium after. I mean, they use ETL before, right? But it's too
yeah,
slow. Yeah.
yeah. You guess sometimes can be very slow. Okay, I think we have another one. But basically Melvin is saying thanks for your presentation. It's been very educational.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh, Another one we have. Okay, I even have a question like basically very simple. Where is it useful? I think I also have another question on which can also answer together with this. Basically, the question is, maybe you can throw in a couple of use cases that the companies using Debezium, and how they're using it and how is it beneficial for them. Like probably like one or two companies that are using it for like a simple use case.
Okay, overall, if we look at Debezium, the use case is many, right? So one thing is basically you want to have a real-time data available to the from all various databases that you have to the so-called consumer application, right? So I mean today we are talking about how fast we can actually have that data available, right? So basically is very basic. It go to the very basic of okay data services, right? So if we have a use case of data services where we need to be able to provide this data in real time to the consumer application, that is one use case, right?
Yep.
Yep. So things like example, if you go to very specific like Outbox, I don't know when it is useful is referring to Outbox or the Debasim, but I want to
Yep.
touch on Outbox as well. Um, why Outbox come into picture is that if you look at today microservices, right? I think I explained earlier, if one microservices need to exchange information with the other, example, order service and customer service, right? So they need to have a way, right, to exchange the information. A typical traditional approach, I still see a lot of people using doing microservices is the order service call the customer service, which is not right because let's say a customer service down, then your order service will have problem, right? And so this is still very tightly coupled. That's why when the saga pattern coming in, right? So it help you to really decouple these two so-called services so that they can run independently. I mean, today your order service can run on premise, your so-called customer service can run on the cloud, right? So
Yep.
is really agile, right? So in this case, I mean, obviously, Saga pattern has a disadvantage that, like I mentioned earlier. That's why when we look at Outbox, there is there's still some things that I don't like about Outbox, traditional Outbox, where you have to you have to create a table yourself, you have to implement all the messaging sending yourself. That's where the Debezium coming in, right? Helping you to hands off all these things, right?
Yep.
So if you ask me, what's the use case of Debezium? Obviously, is that you want to have when you come to design your microservices architecture or cloud native architecture, you want to be able to follow the as much as possible the patterns that we're talking about just now, like single database for single application services or microservices for one single DB service, right? In this case, if you do this way, when your application scale, your DB scale can scale together, right? So that is where we look at the scalability, right? Comparing today, a lot of people are still doing like one app service to the centralized database, right? You probably have Oracle, traditional CRMB there, but then your Oracle DB cannot scale with your microservice, right? Today we want to expect that both can scale together,
Yep.
right? Yep.
Okay. I think that's very well answered. So I have one more question. So Melvin, I think this is a long one. So let me share the first one first. How will you suggest us capturing actors of actions? Basically, to answer the question, who changed what? And then he said with Debian, of course, one idea he had was like adding a column which is last changed by, and with that, Debian will be able to capture the actor, but he's not sure whether it's the best solution or not. So it's like he's looking for any suggestion based on that.
Yeah, basically
You
the idea
already
of
said,
actually who actually doing this and who actually doing that, right? It's actually
yeah,
um, is available in your data, right? I mean, your application, when your application update a database or insert a certain database, when you insert into your tables, your, let's say for my case, Casa table, right? My demo doesn't have the author, right? But because you actually control your Casa service, how you want to insert the data into the Casa table, right? You can insert
yep,
the author and the auditing information as well, right? So in this case, then you can capture who actually modify it, who actually submit it, right? In my audit table, actually, I captures like timestamp, right? I just try to show you how can you captures all this information, but to capture author and all this is very much simple, right? You just need to have one extra entry of this author in your DB table, right? You should be able to capture it.
hmm, understand. Okay, I think I mean that's about it. Question from the comments. So I think guys, if you guys have any questions, still feel free to drop in the comment if you have any questions. Meanwhile, I'm gonna hijack and ask a couple of questions as well.
Okay.
So this connector called embedded connector. Have you tried that? And like, how does it like the difference between? I mean, first is how does this work, and when this come into effect, and in the use case lah, basically with this and the normal connector that they have.
Sorry, again, your question. What is a connect? What are you?
So Debezium have an embedded connector engine. So
Yeah.
this where and also they have like normal connector which they are using it for connection, right? With Kafka and stuff like that, and where they have their own connector for each connector. But my question is like, when does this embedded connector engine comes in, or when does this can be used? Like, what does actually does I mean, what actually this embedded connector is useful for?
Yeah,
Like,
okay. The architecture of Debezium actually, like I said earlier, is based on
yeah,
the Connect framework, right? So if you
yep.
look at Connect framework, how actually the Connect framework can actually integrate it much more than database, right? So it's very much on depends on what is the source and target system is, and then the Debezium connector basically just use whatever protocol that is supported by the source and target system,
Do you
right?
have any source that actually will use the embedded connector? Like any that you I mean based on your experience, lah. Like,
The current supported connector is this, right? So let me show you.
yep.
Okay, where's my mouse? Like multiple screen here. So today the connectors for Debezium is just
Yeah.
this. Yep.
And then okay, never mind. This is the main one, lah, the basic
Mm.
connector. Okay.
I mean, other
Right.
than that, we do not support, right? I mean, you probably can tell me that, oh, in the Apache Kafka Connect, there is quite a
Yeah.
lot of community-based kind of connector for other DB and so on. But if not listed here, then that means it's not supported.
Yeah, because I read about it and I'm like, how does it help? Like, even is it useful for, like, for example, with DB, Cassandra DB or something, right? So I think it's not here. That's plus my assumption lah. But I think you pretty much answered it anyway. So
Mm.
another question is basically like, uh, can we use the Debezium to monitor any database, like just for monitoring purposes? Like, can we use it, like, for example, any bottleneck on a DB and stuff like that?
No, no,
Yeah.
no.
I think mainly that's about it lah. So I don't have that much
Mm.
question.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Yep. I think
I
all are
think you
valid
guys.
questions.
Yeah. So I think okay. Okay. One guy have Michael have one more question.
Okay.
Last. Okay. This will be the last question, all right? Okay. Since we are almost ending anyway. So if data gets out of sync, how to get it back in sync quickly without putting DB into maintenance? Since data will
Okay,
keep
so
on streaming.
yeah, so I think this is much depending on the source database, right? Like we mentioned, we actually capturing the transaction log of the database. So whatever that has been appear in the transaction log of the database is a committed transaction. So when the committed transaction, what we capture is a committed transaction means that whatever has been persist into the database is safe, right? I mean, today,
Yep.
if let's say insert, delete, everything is completed, the transaction is completed, means it's safe. So whatever we capture is those safe, uh, so-called, we know that this is already a committed and already safe into database. So they won't have any problem that will have a database out of sync from the Debasim perspective, right? Obviously, if your database become haywire or corrupted, then that is a different case, right? Um,
Yep.
yep, because the basic will capture whatever that is appear in the transaction log.
Yep. I think to answer this question actually is like there's a many other way. I mean, it doesn't need a division anyway. Basically to get it sync quickly. There are many ways to actually. You don't have to put a DB maintenance lah. Since even if you, especially if you're running on the cloud itself. Uh, Okay. I think okay. That's the last question. I think pretty much we have 9:42. Okay, that's nice. All right. I think we pretty much come to the end. So CK, do you have anything last word? Anything you want to share? And I will just like say goodbye later after that.
I think I'm good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really appreciate there's a lot of questions coming up. I really enjoy interactive session than just I'm presenting and demo.
Yep. So hopefully, if like a physical meetup, right, and we hopefully you have like starting from next year or something like that, will be more interesting. Like usually, when a physical meetup, we have a lot of interesting questions from the floor. So
Yeah, of course, obviously.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. Okay, I think that's pretty much to it. And then I'm gonna remove you. But feel free to stay in the chat. I will catch up with you in a while. So guys, that's about it for tonight. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and watching this meetup. And it's quite interesting, right? How Debezium is being used, and to put it simply, Debezium is actually basically change data capture. So that's what it is like, right? So you can use it for any purposes. And I think CK already have lot of reference that you guys can further read on it or try to. I mean, if you have any use cases, you can read up more and watch the videos and everything. Uh, and stuff like that lah. So if not, you can just find him and probably he will sort it out for you. All right. So thank you so much, CK, and for tonight, and Redhat as well. And thank you so much for you guys watching and everything. And we will see you soon. Stay safe. And go out and have fun while you can, and just be safe. And see you guys. So good night.